In the previous lecture, we saw how mathematical operators work on numerics. In this lecture, we'll discuss about the Boolean operators, which are also called logical operators, and how they work on the logical types of data. So let's define a couple of variables. We'll say P, and we'll store the value of P as true, and Q is going to be stored as false. If we do P and Q, we're going to get the value false out, since in order for the AND to work, both of these values have to be true, and since Q is false, the output is false. If we do P or Q, the output is true, because for the OR, only one of these have to be true. And finally, if we do something like P and we do OR and we do not Q, actually let's replace this with an and we do an output of that, the output is true. Since P and not Q, not is going to do a negation, and it's going to make it the opposite of whatever that was here previously. So here it was false previously, now it's going to become true. So P and true, which is not Q, is going to output the value of true. So these are basically three operators which are used very often when we're doing checking. So oftentimes we would do something like 10 greater than, say, some sort of variable, and this is the case, or this is the case. And oftentimes we'll be coupling these statements together using parentheses. So we'll do true and false, and then on the outside we'll have something like or, and we'll have another operation which is going to be false or true. The output is going to be true since this evaluates to true, and since one of these evaluates to true, the function automatically returns the value of true. And what I want to explain here is, obviously you're not going to say true and false, you're going to have some replacement here. So the true and the false here actually stands for some other condition which evaluates here. So say you have some sort of a condition which is going to evaluate to true, another condition evaluate to false. You want to see if both of these conditions evaluate to true, only then set it to true. And in another case, either one of these conditions, if they're true, then go ahead and execute the piece of code. This is going to be discussed more in the if else portions of our lectures, and there we will be talking about how you can make decisions based on specific conditions and specific evaluations of those Boolean conditions that we have. And you can choose to either execute one piece of code or another piece of code, or say do nothing. So with that, I would just like to show a couple of truth tables to you. A truth table is a way of looking at a couple of Boolean variables and saying for each of the possible values, say true or false, what is the output. So if we go to Safari, go to true table, and you put truth table, and you see that we have a couple of tables that are placed here. And for the most simple one, we have P, Q, P and Q. So we list all the values for P possible, all the values for Q possible, and then we see all the combinations possible. So we had true, true, false, false, and for each true we have a true possible, a false possibility. For each false there's a true possibility, there's a false possibility, and for each of these cases we have these four possibilities out. That's called constructing a truth table, and you can do that as well before you go ahead and use these logical statements inside your code. You must know exactly what's going to happen when, say, this portion evaluates to true, this portion evaluates to false. You must know exactly what's going to happen in any of those cases. So make sure when you use these, you evaluate for all the cases. And with that, let's move on to comparators and comparison operators. We can combine statements of and or, and we can replace these with more meaningful conditions that we can place here.